I was living under Christ's kindness because it was
Okay.
a
Living
lot.
under Christ's kindness. Acronym for look. Okay, we
Yeah.
got it. You preaching too. Okay.
No, because I know that it's not that easy, and I don't know how it was for me. I don't know. I mean, but it just happened that way.
What a blessing.
Yes.
In the midst of that storm too, dealing with your brother
Mhm.
and that illness.
I
And
lost I lost touch with a lot of friends though, because when a lot of my friends were going out, I just would stay in. I wouldn't go. And I notice now, I look back on it now, and I see some of those friend groups that I would say, oh, I can't go out. They're like such a close knit group. I'm still connected to them, but they're such a close knit group. And I was like, man, I mean, I remember sacrificing that year. I didn't.
well, speak to that because I've talked to some students or people who can't CPA candidates, and it seems like there's a disconnect or misunderstanding about the amount of sacrifice you have to put into it. So it seems like during this time of social distancing, everything shut down during this pandemic, this would be the opportune time to study and not feel guilty for not going out hanging out.
Agree.
But I don't think they're getting it.
I had to tell a student that this week, and she was like, they want us to take our, study. The head our tax department was telling them, this busy season is about to ramp up, and if you don't have work to do, you need to be studying. And she was like, you want me to study in the midst of all this? I'm like, what else do you have to do?
Right.
Well, you need to be studying, like, because what will happen, especially in the public accounting sector. So this is why it's so important for people to get it done early on. In the public accounting sector, you will get stalled out because it's a public accounting firm.
Okay.
In order to be manager, I mean, this is across the board. This is not special to Wyndham Brandon, what special to PwC. The way the public accounting model works, you cannot get promoted to manager without a CPA. You cannot be a CPA at a public accounting firm. You can't be a manager at a public accounting firm without a CPA. So I've seen people get stalled out for promotion. I mean, they're doing everything. They're doing everything like a manager, and everybody knows it. People respect them as a manager, but they can't have that title because they can't pass the exam. And by the time you make it to manager, your workload is larger. You probably have different things going on in your family. You're probably trying to grow, like start a new family, and all these other pressures come into play, and they can't pass the exam. And so they get stuck at a level, and they end up having to leave public accounting, maybe try other things. And so I was telling her, like, you have literally nothing going on right now. You probably should be studying.
Take advantage of this time.
Yes.
And that, a lot of people are dealing with death and things from the coronavirus. So I understand and don't wish that on anybody. But some of the silver lining in this, if you're a CPA candidate,
yes,
you got time, and nobody's going to ridicule you or be pulling at you to go hang out, drinks, parties. It's not even there because I understand, and I've been there knowing that all this is going on around you, and that what is that FOMO, the fear of missing out, is real. So, like you said, not having that added pressure should motivate them to go ahead and try to knock out these exams.
Right.
So I'm not understanding. So sometimes it makes you wonder, do you really want it?
Exactly.
Or how bad do you want it?
Right. I mean, like, literally, I think the motivation for me was that I knew I was, again, I left my internship expecting to start working right away. And they put me on pause because I had to get my master's, and then they told me that I would get this bonus if I passed. And so I think the motivation for me was I needed to, my family, I didn't come from like a rich family, and so I needed funds.
So what is your current position now? Now your accounting career and have your CPA master's. So where are you at in your career?
Yeah, so I just recently got promoted to Director of International Tax at my firm. And what that means is just I'm, kind of tasked with growing our firm's international tax practice. We are a firm that has, our clients are connected to about 72 different countries around the world. And, so that's related to compliance, consulting, structuring. There's so many different international tax laws. A lot of and when there was a tax reform that happened in 2017, a lot of the tax law changes were related to international like tax law. And so that's kind of where I've built my career now at my firm. And I mean, it's growing. It's growing tremendously. I mean, because even from the compliance perspective, like for example, if you have a U.S. company that is invested in a foreign subsidiary or has a foreign subsidiary in a different jurisdiction, there's certain filing requirements that you have to report in the U.S.
Gotcha.
And a lot of those forms sometimes are just informational, and they come with huge penalties. Like one of the forms is like $10,000 just if you don't file it.
Really?
Yes, and so you need an international expert to come in and make sure, like, okay, what exactly do you need to file, like your compliance? Are you in the best tax structure? You know, how are you planning on leaving? How are you planning on coming in? Like all of those things is, all of those things are connected to the international tax world.
So is it a U.S. company? Do you have locations outside of United States? Locations?
No, we are part of a global affiliation of accounting firms. So if we have clients that have subsidiaries in other jurisdictions, then we will call on our affiliate firms to help kind of service that client, or vice versa. If they have, like say the client is a foreign parent and they have a U.S. subsidiary, then we'll connect with our foreign affiliate.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, sounds like you have opportunities there to grow.
I mean, I travel. I mean, with the exception of last year, I mean, I've gone to, and I've been at this firm so 6 years now, and I've probably gone to 6 different countries just from being with this firm.
Wow. And even with the little ones, you were able to do that or feel comfortable doing it?
Oh yeah. I mean,
required, or could you have pulled back, or that was you on your own saying, yeah, I can make this work?
Yeah,
I just want you to kind of expound on that for those who may have families and thinking, I just don't know if this CPA is going to work out for me because of all the expectations and requirements in public accounting.
Let me tell you, I think another thing that motivated me was, I remember I was at PwC and it was this partner had this event at her house, and she came from very humble beginnings. Apparently, she said very humble. And we were in her house. She was walking around her house, and her bedroom was probably the size of my boyfriend's apartment at the time. Her bedroom, and she said, "You see this?" She said, "Stick with it, kid. This could be you one day." And I was like, "Okay,
you can have this one day."
Yeah, so I was like, I literally always remember that too. She was like, "Stick with it, kid." She was like, that's just the type of person she was. If you knew if you knew this lady, you would understand why I'm laughing about it. It's just how she was. But so I mean, I was pregnant when I took my first trip, and I remember saying, like, I want to go. Like, you're not gonna leave me behind. I put in all this work. I want to go. And I started. I haven't done it in a long time because I've only had 2 kids. But I used to post this thing called "Pregnant and Abroad." Like, yes, I can do it. Oh, I say working moms can too. Is what that was my little blog post. I mean, well, I never blogged, but that was my Instagram hashtag. Working moms can too.
Okay.
Say, like, I mean, you can do it. I'm abroad. Like, people will help. If I tell my story a lot to people, and my family members are invested in what I do. So when I got promoted, they felt like, oh man. So when I was watching the kids for you and you were doing XYZ, they felt like they were part of that promotion. So bringing people a part of your story, they will help you. And so that's just kind of how I guess kept going. I mean,
and you've seen the rewards and compensation.
Oh yeah,
over the years is paying off those sacrifices.
Most definitely.
In the hospital with your brother, and then having a
oh my gosh, yes. I mean, last year, pre-COVID, my husband and I, one of the business trips that we did, went to Barcelona, and he came along with me for our 5-year anniversary trip, and that was a business trip, And so, I mean, I've definitely seen the rewards pay off from becoming a CPA, sticking with it. The sacrifices that I made during that period of time, I mean, was well worth it. Was well worth it.
Okay. I just want to touch on that so people will see it pays off, or there's light at the end of the tunnel. Just stick with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a lot of long hours. I'm not going to act like that's not there. But anything that you want in life, you got to work hard for it. And so that's just kind of my motto. Like, if I want it, I'm going to have to work hard for it.
Gotcha. Okay. In your firm, and considering this day and age and recording this video, which is January 2021, in the midst of the pandemic, we also have this racial reckoning, I'm calling it here. So how do you feel about Black people in the workplace, in the accounting field? Are you underrepresented in your firm? And have you had any obstacles that you would say you directly related to discrimination, or in how you've overcome any of that throughout your
Well,
career?
so it's definitely a lack of us in leadership positions. I feel like sometimes when I mean, if you want to talk about my firm specifically, I think they're already a very inclusive firm that sometimes you don't realize you have implicit biases. You don't realize that you are treating people a certain way, or that you don't realize that one person has to go over and beyond just to get the same thing as other people. And I don't think I really genuinely feel that they may not realize it. You know, I've had some very interesting conversations with people there. And I don't know if it's because of the way I grew up. I grew up in the city of Atlanta, you know, where we never felt inferior to anybody. That's just how the first mansion I ever went in was a Black person's mansion. You know, I went to school with doctors, lawyers, kids, and it was. So I never. I mean, it was just a sense of pride.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, the school I went to, Frederick Douglass High School, the things that they taught us. So I never ever felt like intimidated in the workplace ever. I just didn't. And so I remember dealing with some very challenging things, you know, at different places. Specifically here, one of the things, you know, I would mention was our hair, like how we have to show up to work every day, right? So I'm a type of person, I probably changed my hair 3 times the whole year, 3 times. And I remember one day, like right before the pandemic, I had it very straight down the middle, and they were like, "Oh, I like it. Oh, I like your hair. Oh, I like this hair. I like this one." And I was just like, okay. At first, I was like, "Oh, they complimented me." After a while, I was like, "This is a little too much." Now, okay, is this an underlying message? And so I asked one lady. I said, "A lot of people keep mentioning me about my hair. Like, what's the big deal?" And it was, "Oh, no. We just can't do that." I said, "Who's we?"
Okay.
And she was like, you know, it's like I'm able to ask that question very candidly. Who's we? And one lady came to my office. I said, you could go for a hairstyle change or two.
Jesus told her.
Yeah, you know, like, so that's a simple situation. Just so us coming to work every single day, we have to like think about those things. Like, how do we come to work? How we present it? Because we don't want anything to deter us from like them having whatever image in their mind that could potentially deter us from making it to the next level. That's one thing as a Black person. Second thing is there are very few of us. You know, we have accounting, tax, audit, and accounting and advisory. And it's probably at the time now this year they've ramped up their recruiting efforts. But before then, it was probably 3 or 4 of us in each group. And whenever we would have firm-wide meetings, we, you know, when we don't see people you work with every day, we would, we'll catch up, we'll all sit together at firm-wide meetings. Somebody came to me one day and said, "Why do y'all always sit together? Why don't y'all like mix and mingle?" I said, "Well, who were you sitting next to?" You know, like, "Oh, I was sitting next to my friend." I was like, "So why can't I sit next to mine?" You know, I don't have a person that looks like me. Now I do, but then I didn't have a person that looks like me in my same department. You know, and so when I saw someone that looked like me from a different department, we naturally, like, you know, connected with each other.
Right.
And so I think maybe they probably started to see that, and they've expanded their efforts. We now have a diversity, equity, and inclusion council, which I co-chair.
Okay.
You know, we're trying to have more candid conversations about things. I think just breaking down those implicit biases that you may not even realize you have. You know, so
you started with some discussions internally.
We started having those internally. We have a council now where we are working. It's brand new, like brand new. We are working towards just figuring out how to make the firm more diverse, you know, diverse not just necessarily diverse, it's equity and inclusion. Like, it's all three of those things working together. So, yeah, it's a lack in the workplace. Big, you'll see the staff may be extremely diverse, but then somehow its retention is really tough. Like, how do we get people to stay in long enough to go all the way up the ranks? One of those things could be because maybe you didn't pass the CPA exam, and so you can't even make it to manager. You know what I mean? So then if you have a person that's really good and really sharp, and you're like, oh, I think this person can make partner one day, but we don't have them passing the CPA exam, they can't even make manager. And then they have to end up leaving the firm and going somewhere else. So all of those things play a part. And you're seeing a diverse group of people making it, or at least in our particular case, Black women make it to the like executive leadership levels.
So, and you're a director. Are you in a position to hire?
Yeah, I have an interview tomorrow with a candidate. I help a lot with interviews and recruiting, and I mean, I'm extremely involved with the firm. And so it's like, because I understand that sometimes you don't know the conversations that are happening in those rooms until you get in those rooms.
Exactly.
So each level that I get to, I'm like, okay, what's the new conversation? And I reach back. We have some young people that I don't necessarily. So in the public accounting firm, you usually get like what's called a career coach.
Mm-hmm.
So basically a staff person assigned to you.
Right.
That kind of helps with your career along the way. The ones that are at my firm that I'm not directly coaching, I indirectly coach them, and I'm tough on them. And I tell them I'm tough on them. I say, I'm tough on you. I'm not gonna let up because I need you to be. I need you to. I need you to keep going. I'm like, and they can't stand it, but they know in the end. Like one guy, I was on him hard. I know he wanted to I know he hated me, but then he got promoted. And he was like, I see why you were so hard on me.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not going to let up. And I text him all the time, have you studied today? When you pass an exam? It's like, because it's not many of us. And I know you can get started out at manager and then you have to end up leaving. And now we got to start all over from scratch with somebody else trying to go up the ranks.
Yeah, that's the same story I'm hearing. That lines up with what's going on out here in the accounting world relates to Black people. Is being, as you say, stalled out or stagnant and can't progress beyond a certain point. But you're doing all the meats and potatoes, all the hard work.
Yeah.
And getting paid just this base amount, or you can't get past this certain amount.
Right.
Without those three letters.
Yes.
So in your career, where you ultimately want to be, or your aspirations, is it to make partner or venture out on your own? Or
I used to say I wanted to venture out on my own. Maybe that is a post-retirement dream, right? I don't want to ever shy away from that. But currently, I definitely want to make partner. I want to make history, here at my firm. I want to be the first Black partner that my firm sees, and I'm working hard to get there.
Okay, you think it's a possibility? You said not the first Black woman, the first Black person, period, in this firm?
Mm-hmm. No, first Black partner.
Yeah, well, yeah, partner.
Well, they call them principals here in my firm. They call them principals. But yeah, we've never had one.
Well, I know you break barriers. You're doing so well now. You're already a director and graduated in 2008?
I graduated undergrad in 2008 and my master's in 2009.
So that's good. You fast tracking it.
Really? Well, I guess I think it's based on that. I don't have the base of what it's supposed to be.
All that negative energy. You don't have any of that negativity around you. All the grim statistics.
I just recently learned. I remember my accounting professor, Ms. Washington, telling us that not a lot of Black people have CPAs. So I remember thinking, I got to get my CPA. But I didn't know until recently the number was almost less than 1%.
Yeah, so it's like
I didn't know that.
Can't even give you a number, so they just say less than 1%. It's like 0.00.
Well, you sometimes think really you kind of not question that number because it's lower. But when you see NABA, you go to these NABA conferences, you're thinking dang, you just see so many Black professionals. I remember going to my first official conference. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so I guess you don't realize that the numbers are so small. So you almost think like, man, is it all the CPAs in the whole world, like whole America, right here at this conference?
Right.
It's like, oh, this all of us. And so then when we disperse, it's like we're only like we disperse and go to all these companies, one here, one there.
And then you had the blessing or privilege to grow up in Metro Atlanta, the unicorn.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a little different lens to look through.
Exactly.
I'm from East Texas, so I hadn't seen anything like this, and that's why I chose to move to Atlanta for all the things I've heard. So growing up here, you would have a totally different, I guess, rose-colored glasses.
I realized I grew up with what you could call maybe a little bit of Black privilege. You know, I mean, even at being in Atlanta, like seeing all these things, the things that we were taught, the curriculum we were taught, it wasn't Black history wasn't just, you know, I mean, and then I grew up in John Lewis's district. That's the district I grew up in.
Okay.
You know? So there was a combination of all different types of income, like different classes. I mean, it was just, I wouldn't trade nothing about my upbringing. Like I loved looking back on it now, I see how much it prepared me and a lot of my classmates for life. I mean, like so many of us are doing so many different things. Yeah, Bottoms came from my high school.
Did she? The mayor, current mayor?
Yes, Mayor Bottoms was a Frederick Douglass Astro. I mean, you have so many entertainers and athletes and politicians and business people. So I think maybe I had nothing ever seemed unattainable for me. And so I think that's probably part of, you know, maybe the confidence I have.
So confident and so successful, it just came
the confidence is all God.
Ingrained in you.
The confidence is all God, you know. I think, I mean, the success is all God. I think the confidence that I have is probably a little bit of that upbringing, but the success is all God.
Gosh. So what do you think we should do? A couple more questions, wrap up. What do you think we should do with improving those pass rates in the Black community and ultimately becoming CPAs, whether you're doing tax field, accounting, consulting, going all the way to being a CPA versus just being staff accountant or working in being an accounting professional?
I truly believe we got to start at a younger age. We have to somehow, some way, start glamorizing the accounting profession. You know, you have like a lot of people now are getting more familiar with like the tech field. You see, you know, we know the doctors and the lawyers, but if there's a way to show that this field is also very successful and needed, like we're the backbone of any industry.
Right.
Literally anywhere you go in the world, like we're the backbone of, you know, what we call, everybody talks about the economy. Like people have to put those numbers together, you know, so maybe you go the finance or economic route. So I think that's one way. The other way, we have to start very early. We have to start earlier on, maybe doing high school programs. You know, I got introduced into accounting in my high school program. My teacher was the one that took me to my first NABA conference. It was called ACAP at the time. It may still be called that, but it was the high school program. That's how I got introduced to it. So maybe we go to the high schools, find out the high schools that have accounting programs, introduce this to the high school students. I think the issue is starting younger, and then also letting them know that very successful. Kind of the thing where I told you the partner came to me and said, "Stick with it, kid. This could all be yours." Mm-hmm. Who would have ever thought that being an accountant? I mean, her next door neighbor was like the person that founded Sweetwater Brewery. You know, she's living in Morningside community, huge house, and she's a CPA. You know what I mean? Like, people probably need to realize that, like, oh, CPAs can be, you know, this same. You can be very successful. You can make a lot of money. You can be in the midst of so many different industries. Not almost every single industry needs an accountant. I think that's the way to do it. And I don't know how. Maybe people need, but a lot of times people try to keep their accountants to themselves. They don't want people to know who their accounting person is. They don't, but you know, but maybe if, I don't know, we need somebody to get famous. Maybe do a reality show on like the public accountants of Atlanta or something. I think that's the way to do it. You know, I don't know why people are not passing and they don't have the drive for it, but I think maybe it needs to be, in my opinion, shown in a different light.
different light with some glamour, huh? So
Yes.
draw people in and attract them, then tell them all about it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a lot of it's drama filled, it's stress, things happen. I don't know how. I mean, especially in public accounting, especially during tax season.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, I mean, I think people. I don't know how to do it, but how do we go back to the schools, the high schools, and let people know, more about, sticking with it. But I definitely feel like sometimes unfortunately, our young people, they like to see what's flashy. And that's kind of what, drives them towards different fields. So.
Okay, food for thought. We'll figure this thing out. I'm gonna keep trying to find and uncovering on the different rocks and try to find this back there. So let's come on out to the forefront. Let people know.
I mean, like this right here is glamorizing it. You know what I mean? Like you're doing these interviews. Your people are like being able to see real life people, hear their stories. This is, I think all of that is part of it. Just saying, people hearing their stories. I don't know how we would get this out, but it would be a blessing if we had way more CPAs, like in general across the board, that look like us.
Yeah, so hopefully we can move the needle at least 1% in my lifetime, 2%. Let's go. Well, one final question. What does it mean to you to have CPA behind your name?
Look, that's how I lead. Sometimes I don't even tell people I am international. Like, what do you do? I'm a CPA, and I mean, because I worked hard for those credentials. I have, it means a lot. I feel honored. It's one of the most respected professions. One of the most trusted advisors is your CPA, because they can help you in all aspects of your life. When every step of the way in your life, your CPA can be there as your trusted advisor. So it means that I'm trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's honorable. It is a solid profession. It will be here until the end of time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. My guest today, my distinguished guest today has been Ms. Brandi Samuel, certified public accountant. So again, thank you for your time, sharing your CPA exam journey and telling us about your career in international tax. I really appreciate it. So again, thank you. And thank you to Mima for setting this up and connecting us. I appreciate that. And before I go, like I always say, remember who you are and whose you are, and there's no time like the present. See you next time.